Alright guys, I just kind of wanted to show you what I did to the tracker since I bought it and how I've been using it for the last year and a half. So I got this thing completely factory, and one of the first things I did was I grabbed some square tubing and I made a homemade body lift. It's not like normal body lifts where you just have the bolt go all the way through and you put in like a spacer. This bolt actually screws in, so you have to actually bolt it from the bottom and the top, just because I'm doing a 3-inch body lift, and then I added a plate on the bottom. If you ever undo one of these body mounts, you kind of know what I'm talking about once you undo it. But yeah, I just used 3-inch spacers all the way around the truck, and it seemed to work good so far. So that was the first thing I did, just to get a little bit more height, and then I could fit these tires, which are a 31 by 10.5 inch, just a cheaper Chinese mud tire. And so once that was done, I got the extra clearance to fit the tires, and then I moved on to the suspension. So what we did is actually we used a low range off-road strut spacer, which gives us the extra length on the strut. Because what I did, I used a Jeep TJ 1 3/4 inch spacer, because most of the tracker kits come with a 1-inch spacer or a 1.5 inch spacer. So the 1.5 inch spacer will give you about 2 inches of lift because of the articulation on the way the suspension works. So if we get that extra 1/4 of an inch, we can get almost 1/2 inch of lift about. So using a 1 3/4 inch spacer can get us over the 2 inches of lift. About 2.66, I think I worked it out, was how much lift it actually gets you. So I'm personally using the TJ lift just to get that extra tiny bit of lift. And all I had to do was drill out the center where this cone is inside the spring. I just had to drill out the center of it to 4 inches, and it slid right on just like normal. And we get that extra bit of lift. The strut spacer then gives me the extra drop on the shock, and then that way I don't not constantly having the tire lift up with the shock, and actually can droop down a bit more. You also have to cut your brake lines or do something with them. I just removed the mounts and just kind of cut the mount off, drill one hole, and just kind of hold this here. It gives it the extra length you need because you have extra drop on your front suspension now, so you need a little bit extra line. I do have trail gear ones at home, but I'm not going to put them on until I do the Toyota solid axle swap. So just giving them the extra play helped out for now, and I've had no problems so far. And for the back, I took Ford Focus wagon springs, 2005 to 2011. I know other ones work, but that's just what I used. So these are Ford Focus springs, and they'll lift the truck 3 inches on the back, and they're a lot softer, so it's a softer ride. But the only thing is, it lifts at 3.5 inches, but I cut one coil off, which will put it at 3 inches. So I have 3-inch suspension on the front, 3-inch on the back, and then these are Cavalier shocks, 90s Cavalier shocks. So that gives it an extra 2.5 inches of drop on it to compensate for these longer springs. Another thing to mention about these Cavalier shocks, if you do use them, this bottom hole is just a little bit too small, so some people drill them out. I managed to just pop out in between this rubber, there's the metal piece that the bolt goes through. I managed to just slide a new one in there, but some people have to drill them out because this bolt is actually too big to go through the Cavalier one. So that's something to mention that you have to figure out when you get them, is just drill it out or put in a different piece there. It's not a big deal though. So that's what I got set up for the suspension. It's definitely a lot softer ride. Another thing I did was we extended this strut bar brace, just because with the body lift it runs through, and obviously it wasn't the same height. So I took the factory plates and actually welded up new bars and then moved them up to the top. Another thing I did was I welded on this hitch onto the front frame members, and that way I could have the hitch on here with the receiver, and then I also have a winch up in this corner. And then because this thing wasn't so high yet without the Toyota axles, I built these lower control arm skid plates that seem to to be doing the trick. And I got a Diff cover. It's just an old piece of aluminum running board. And then this is a 80s Silverado skid plate that I built out of, just kind of cut it to fit. Another thing I did was I covered in all the open holes with plastic so that no mud could get into the engine bay and get the fan all covered in water and mud, and then flick it all around. So you can see that the whole entire inside of the engine bay is covered with these plastic guards so no mud can get in here. And for the steering extension for my body lift, this is just homemade, but I'd like to take a piece of 2-inch square tubing and put one through the bottom and one through the top, and then that way this whole thing's solid. So this is just temporary. This isn't how I do it, but it's worked for about a year and a half. You definitely, with a 3-inch body lift, have to extend this. I've heard that a 2-inch you don't have to, but you went with a 3-inch. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I've done to the tracker up till now. I guess we do have a diff drop on there as well, a trail gear diff drop. I've tried a couple of them, and I've snapped a couple of the diff drops. We'll go under there and I'll show you guys. Alright, so a common thing to happen with Chevy tractors is the front diff breaks because it's aluminum. So the back mount on mine actually broke. I have a U-bolt that comes through these two holes and actually holds the whole front diff down. I had problems with my diff mounts, or my diff drops snapping, and the company said that they're supposed to snap to try to save stuff. So I don't know if you can see in there, on that mount right there is the diff drop. So I've welded that one back together, and that's kind of why I'm going to Toyota axles. Is I just want to be done with this whole all these diff issues. And for exhaust, we no cat, just straight pipe all the way along. Looks like we got a crack there, and it comes down to a 2018 Mustang factory V8 Mustang muffler, which is free, so I just threw it on, and that's what we're running for exhaust. So yeah, this is just a quick rundown of what I did to my tracker since I bought it, and hopefully I'll get some solid axles in there and be able to do a little more serious off-roading with it. But yeah, so far I've been happy with it. It's taken a beating, it's broke a few times, but I've just kind of managed to mangle it back together and it seemed to survive, so I'm pretty happy with it. But yeah, anyways, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.